Emotional involvement with your want is the desire. What do you want? There is one quality which one must possess to win, and that is definiteness of purpose, the knowledge of what one wants, and a burning desire to possess it. It's been said that desire is the effort of an unexpressed possibility within, seeking expression without through our action. Let me repeat that. Desire is the effort of the unexpressed possibility within, seeking expression without through our action. Now the trick here, how do we get it within? Do you know, I have heard, and you've probably heard, many sales managers, vice presidents of sales, if we could only build desire. And they say it as if they can't. The truth is, they can. You will never desire something you don't want. You will not desire it. If you're going to build desire, and desire is really the yeast that raises the dough, make no mistake about that. It's what really fuels the engine. The desire has to be there, and it has to be strong, and you can build it, and then you can add power to it. But you have to understand how your mind functions. And if you don't understand how your mind functions, the understanding of desire is going to escape you. And that's what happens with most people. They never really focus. They never develop the desire because they make the wrong decisions. Now think, when you're going after something you want, the only prerequisite, we've already covered this in decision, is do I want it? If you want it, bang, like that, you're going to make a decision to get it. Now, at that point, it's something you want. Wants are just resident in our conscious mind. They're not in our subconscious. They're in our conscious mind. It's something we see on the screen of our mind. We build an image of it. We're told to build images. We're told to build a crystal clear image in our conscious mind of what it is we want. We've often been told to write it out. I've mentioned that to many people. Describe it in as much detail as you can and in the present tense. Present tense is vital. You see, if you study this long enough, you're going to realize that's all we've ever got. There isn't any past. There isn't any future. That's all an illusion. They're myths. Conscious mind, present tense. You've got to see what you want. Now, the trick is you've got to take the idea from your conscious mind of the want, and you've got to deposit it in the treasury of your subconscious mind. I did not originate that idea. William James did. I just love using it. He said, deposit it in the treasury of your subconscious mind, because that's where all the power lies. Well, how do we do this? Well, first of all, I think we have to review just who we are and what we are, how we function. You know, why can we accomplish so much? And in a short period of time, why can we go from struggling to winning? How does this happen? There is a way, and it all comes with understanding. First of all, realize that the reflection coming back from the mirror is really not you. That's your body. The body is the instrument of the mind, as magnificent as it is. And we study the body all of our life and never completely understand it, but it's just the instrument of the mind. We have to understand something about the mind. Most people do not understand the mind. No one has ever seen the mind. So trying to understand the mind when we haven't got any image of it, it's almost impossible. There was a doctor in San Antonio, Texas, understood that, Dr. Thurman Fleet. He was very involved in the healing arts way back around 1934. And he said, you know, all problems originate in the mind, and he said they express themselves in the body. So when we treat a problem in the body, we're treating a symptom or we're treating an effect. We're not treating the cause of the problem. You got to go to the mind. Well, most people, when they think of the mind, instantly they get a picture of the brain. But the brain isn't your mind any more than your foot or your elbow. The brain is part of the body, as magnificent as it is, and make no mistake about it. It's not the mind. It's an expression of the mind, as the rest of the body is. The brain is actually an electronic switching station. As you activate brain cells, your mind activates brain cells, you set up different vibrations. You move yourself into a different vibration. You're going to move into the vibration that the good that you desire is on. It's on that frequency. But that's going down the road a little ways. We're talking about desire now. So what do? The conscious mind has the ability to accept or reject. And this good doctor said, I'm going to make a picture of the mind, and he drew a circle. And he put a line across the center. He said the circle represents the mind. The line across the center is the dividing line from the conscious to the subconscious. Now, is that the way it is? No, it's not the way it is. Nobody knows the way it is in an image. This is one he made, and he made it, and it's a marvelous idea. Then he put a little circle in the bottom. He says that's the body. Now, it's what's going on in the big circle that dictates what's going to go on in the small circle. So let's take a look at the conscious mind. If you're a psych major, you know the conscious mind reasons inductively and deductively, either way, both ways. The subconscious does not. The subconscious is totally deductive. It's also immoral. It doesn't care what you plan. It has no ability to differentiate between good and bad. It cannot differentiate between what's real and what's imagined. So you can just imagine something and put it in your subconscious mind. Subconscious mind will accept it. Nothing's ridiculous. All things are possible. It's like planting something in the earth. The earth is immoral. I love the way Earl Nightingale explained it on his Strangest Secret recording. He said you can plant corn, a sweet food. Not a 16th of an inch away, you can plant nightshade, a deadly poison. One will come up with just as great an abundance as the other. Well, that's the way the subconscious mind works. Now, what we've got to understand is that the conscious mind originates the ideas. Then the subconscious mind has to put that idea in the subconscious mind. However, there's a problem. The subconscious mind has been pre-programmed. It's been pre-programmed before you were even born. As a matter of fact, the subconscious mind begins to be programmed at the moment of conception. Now, we may be going a long way off track here to explain desire, but I think it's necessary. Where did you come from? Well, a little energy from mom, a little from dad, come along, and they joined. That formed the nucleus of you. All mom's DNA is in there, all dad's DNA. Where did mom's come from? Well, from her mother and dad. Where did it come from? Well, from their parents. So you see, there's a genetic strain that goes way back. And a lot of it is ridiculous information that's programmed right into the DNA. So here you are, 280 days after the moment of conception, and you make your debut on the planet, then your subconscious mind is wide open. It's white, it's like an empty cup, and you can put anything in it you want, and everything's going in. Have you ever asked yourself why people that go through school, their kids go through school? Do you ever wonder why people that quit school early, their kids usually quit school early? It's programming. It's the programming that's taking place. See, whatever goes into the subconscious mind repeatedly, over and over, becomes fixed there. We're programmed to live the way we live. We're programmed to speak the language we speak. If we took an English-speaking child out of New York and placed him in a suburb of Shanghai, that English-speaking baby, or that baby that came from English-speaking parents, would grow up fluent in Chinese, no knowledge of the English language. And we know that. Now, if we took the child from Shanghai and did the same the other way around, the child would grow up fluent in English, no knowledge of the Chinese language. You see, whatever's going on around a baby programs the baby. Do you know the self-image that we walk around with? We didn't originate that self-image. That self-image was originated when we were infants. The subconscious mind, I said, has no ability to reject. The conscious mind has the ability to accept or reject. Like if you're watching the news, you can say, well, I don't believe that. You know, somebody says there's a recession coming, you think I'm not going to participate. You know, you don't have to buy any of that. Problem is, we don't question it. Because when we're watching, we're not thinking, our mind is wide open and it's dumping right in. Now, the more we understand how this mind functions, and it's vitally important that we do, the more we're going to understand desire. The better off we're going to be for not only building a desire, but adding power to it. And the only thing that can grow is the thing you give energy to. So we take the thing we want and we polish it in as much detail as possible, because we know when it goes over to the subconscious got no ability to change it. Whatever you plant, that's what you're going to get. So we build the picture of what we want. We crystallize the picture. We write it out. We rewrite it. And we make sure it's covered in every detail that we can possibly come up with. We do it in as few words as possible. It's not the words, it's the picture. See, every word is a symbol. Every symbol has a corresponding image. Well, when we put the right words together, we build the right image. So we build the image of what we want. I mentioned that I sat down and I took my pen and I said, I'm going to build a company that operates all over the world. Well, I had to see that happening. I had to build it. It was a fantasy, because that's where all goals start. Your want starts out as a fantasy, just sheer fantasy. Then you turn the fantasy into a theory. Now that's a subject in itself that we will get into, but you start to build this picture. Then you mentally let yourself get emotionally involved in it. I read a book a lot, Stella Adler's book, The Art of Acting. Now, I don't want to be an actor. I want to just be a better teacher. But I found out if you're really going to live, you got to act like the person you want to become. She was one of the great acting teachers. She was, just phenomenal acting teacher. She studied under Stanislavski, I believe his name was, who was the Russian acting teacher who originated method acting. The foreword in Stella Adler's book was written by Marlon Brando, who became the first superstar through method acting. And the strange part is Stella Adler never actually wrote a book. She taught lessons. A man named Kissel took all her lessons after she passed on and turned it into a book. It's a fascinating book. So as you read the book, what you're really doing is going to her acting classes. And I would suggest you do that. I watch a couple of movies, and I watch them over and over and over again. One's Patton with George C. Scott. The other is Lawrence of Arabia. They're phenomenal movies. These people weren't acting, they were literally living the part. George C. Scott became General Patton. Peter O'Toole became Lawrence of Arabia. And as I watch this, I see how real it is in their mind. You see a scene where Peter O'Toole's on a camel coming across the desert. The camera's right in close on him, and he thinks he's Lawrence. He's acting like the person he wants to become. That's what we have to do. When you build the goal of what you want, you've got to see yourself with it. It's not hoping it happens down the road. It'll always stay down the road. It's got to be now. It's got to be in our subjective mind. Now, you're going to have a problem doing this because the paradigm doesn't want to accept it. The paradigm wants to reject it. It's not in harmony with the paradigm. The paradigm is a program in your subconscious mind. And it's a program that does not want to accept this new part that you're putting in it. Neither will your relatives or your friends or your neighbors. They'll say, who are you trying to kid? What are you acting like that for? They don't want you to change. But I'm going to tell you something. If you want to change your life, you've got to change your life. And that's where it starts. It starts by building what you want, and then you've got to let yourself get emotionally involved. So you mentally start living it. You literally become the part. And you've got to do that over and over and over and over again. Ask yourself this question. How many times did your mother call you by name before you ever looked around thinking somebody was calling you? I don't know how many times she called Bob before I ever turned my head, but I knew she didn't just do it once or twice. It was done over and over and over and over again. Repetition is the first law of learning, and our intellect doesn't want to accept it. We say, well, I've already read it once. Read it 10,000 times. See it over and over again. And by doing this and understanding, you're going to hit something called a terror barrier. You're going to get afraid. It's going to stop you. You're going to then think, this is ridiculous. I can't do this. And you're going to look at all those 30 reasons Napoleon Hill talked about for failing. They'll all become very vibrant in your mind. Reject them. Get rid of them. Play the game with your mind. Fantasize. Then live it. Become real. And you keep getting emotionally involved. You can do this as you're going to sleep. You can do this as you're driving. You can do it anywhere. But you've got to do it. And it's through the repetition over and over and over again that you will override all that old genetic conditioning. You'll override all that environmental conditioning from when you're a child. And you will start to get emotionally involved with the goal. Don't expect it to happen tomorrow. It won't. You got to do this over and over and over again. See, it's the understanding of the battle that you're up against. Do you know in the movie The Godfather, you'll see where the Godfather talked to Michael. Michael was the son, of course, and Marlon Brando was the Godfather. And he gave him some advice. There was a contract out by the opposing gang. They were going to kill Michael. And the Godfather said, Michael, learn to think as they think, so you'll know how to overcome it. You've got to learn, how has your programming been done? What is it going to do for you? If you want to know what your programming is going to do for you, just take a look at your past results. Because all your past results are nothing but an expression of somebody else's programming. It has nothing to do with what you know. You already know how to do many times better than you're doing. Knowing how to do it is not the problem. That's information that's gathered in the conscious mind. It's not the conscious mind that controls us. That's the reason why people come out of school. Prestigious degrees, no performance. The results don't match all the knowledge in their mind. Why? It's the paradigm, it's the programming, genetic and environmental, and it's strong. Well, you've got to go past all that before you'll ever plant what you want. And every time you go to feed it, every time you go to give more energy to it, the paradigm is going to be there trying to kick it out. And it's going to give you very logical reasons why you're being silly. It's going to give you practical reasons why this won't work. And you're going to be listening to your friends, and what they're going to tell you is what you're already thinking. You don't have the money. How are you going to do it? The money's not there. The money will be there when the money has to be there if you hold the image of doing it. How did I build a company that operates all over the world? I don't know how to do it. Hill pointed out some advice from Carnegie that was very, very good. He said the accumulation of great fortunes calls for power. And power is acquired through highly organized and intelligently directed specialized knowledge. But the person who accumulates the fortune doesn't have to have the knowledge. When I first read that, I felt like I just broke out of a prison. I didn't have to know everything. I have some brilliant people that I work with. They know how to do things I'll never learn how to do. You're getting information here. You may never want to teach what I'm teaching you. So you don't have to know how to teach this. You just have to buy into what I'm telling you, know that I'm telling you the truth, and this just works. Quit listening to your neighbors. Quit listening to some of your friends and relatives. They're telling you why you can't. Do you know what you want to do? Take a look at their results. Do you want their results? Because that's what their thinking is giving them. Do you want their thinking? I don't think so. When that was suggested to me, it started to become obvious. Strange thing, we asked our relatives, our next door neighbor, what do you think, Harry? Do you think I should? Harry will say, it'll never work, forget it. Go to someone who's made it work. Ask them. They'll say, no, this information's right. You see, right now, as I'm speaking and you're listening, there's a power that's flowing to and through you. It's pure, unadulterated energy, pure, unadulterated spirit. It flows to and through you. It's what you're made out of. You can literally photograph the energy leaving your body. Back in 1934, Semyon Kurlian perfected a form of photography that was so powerful you can penetrate this. The energy is so powerful, it'll penetrate the camera, penetrate the film, and you can actually photograph it. And as you change your thoughts, you change the vibration you're in, so the color and this density of this energy changes. You're a living dynamo. Hold your hand up and look at it just for a moment. Do you know that there's approximately 11 million kilowatt hours per pound potential energy locked up in the electrons in the atoms of your body? We've known that since the 50s. There's so much more to you than appears on the surface. Understand this. Your conscious mind can dream. It has fantasy factor in it. Build the picture of what you want. You can accept or reject. Reject all ideas that will not help you get it. Only accept the ideas that will help you get it. Keep building the picture clear. Rewrite it, redream it. Then get emotionally involved. And let yourself, let is the key word. You don't try, you let yourself get emotionally involved. Become aware of how you feel. Because as you let yourself get emotionally involved, you change the vibration you're in. Feeling is a word we invented to describe our conscious awareness of the vibration we're in. Person says, I don't feel very good. They're consciously aware they're in a bad vibration. They're emotionally involved with a bad idea. Person says, I feel like $1,000,000. They're consciously involved in a very positive idea. They're emotionally involved. Let yourself get emotionally involved with your goal. Dream it. every time you eat, hook it into things you're doing, every time you turn on the keys of the car, okay? Every time you sit down at a table, let the idea of your mind flash on the screen of your mind of what you want, but feel it, feel it. It's the repetition of planting the idea in the subconscious mind that is the trick. It's the idea that's planted that is the desire. Way back in religious, they say, desire comes from the Latin, deicere, to give birth to the children. Your ideas are your children. Don't let them be stillborn. Feed them often, feed them every day. Stay emotionally involved with that idea. Don't listen to anybody that tell you why you can't. Only listen to people that tell you how you can. All things are possible. We don't have to be very bright today to really buy into that. Look at the technology we've got today. Look at the modes of transportation. You know, it's just a little over 100 years ago that the Wright brothers got that plane off the ground. Somebody said, yeah, but they were only up there for 14 seconds. That wasn't their attitude. They said, we not only got it up there, we kept it up there for 14 seconds. And look at today, we're flying off to other planets. Progress has been phenomenal. There's the breakthrough. Make this the breakthrough of your family, of your friends, of everyone you work with. They'll follow you. Share it with them. Willingly give, graciously receive. It's a secret for living. But understand desire is the idea that's properly planted in the subjective mind, that's attempting to express itself through action. You see, it's the idea in there that causes the body to act. It not only causes the body to act, dictates the vibration the body's in, that dictates what you attract. See, action and reaction are equal and opposite. That's a law of the universe. Emerson said, Ralph Waldo Emerson said, that's the law of laws. Why? Because that's the way everything works. Action, reaction, the law of cause and effect. When you act, when you send your thoughts out, when you send your feelings out, when you send your actions into the universe reacts in a like manner. A lot of people refer to that as the law of attraction. The law of attraction is a secondary law. The primary law is the law of vibration. Get in the right vibration, you don't have any ever concern with what you're going to attract. You will attract everything that's required for the manifestation of the image. Andrew Carnegie made that very clear. He said, any idea, now listen carefully, any idea that is held in the mind, that's emphasized, that's either feared or revered, will begin at once to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate form available. Emotional involvement with your want is the desire. That's where it happens. Now, when the paradigm tries to reject it, you've got to override the paradigm. The paradigm's going to give you ideas in your conscious mind to knock the want out and tell you why you can't. Your paradigm's giving you what you've got, and that's what you don't want. Go after what you do want. Get emotionally involved. Emotional involvement with what you want is the desire. And it's the repetition of being emotionally involved with what you want that fixes a desire in your subjective mind. Then it's automatically working in your favor. But understand this, clearly understand this. The results you're getting are an expression of what you've desired in the past. Most people see desire as a positive concept. It can be both. What did Carnegie say? Any idea that's held in the mind, that's emphasized, that's either feared or revered, will begin at once to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate form available. Subjective mind is totally deductive. It has no inductive reasoning capacity. It can only accept what you give. And if you're worried, that can turn into the desire. If you're thinking negative thoughts, that turns into the desire. We must override all that. We're operating with understanding. People don't desire what they don't want consciously and deliberately. They're doing it because of ignorance. They don't understand. That's where I lived for 26 years. As I started to understand, I changed it. And when I found out, I build a picture of what I want. Doesn't matter how it's going to happen, it'll happen. Then I get emotionally involved. And I stay emotionally involved. It's the emotional involvement with the want that becomes the desire. Want more. Want better. This isn't going to make you a better person. It's going to make you a better life. You're already beyond the scope of imagination with beauty and talent and power. What ideas have been clothing themselves in your world? Take a look at your results. If they're not what you want, change them. If you're seeing something you don't want, build an image of its polar opposite, what you do want. One thing I learned when I first started, getting out of debt is a bad goal. Because if you're trying to get out of debt, you're thinking debt, and you're going to attract more of the same. Forget the debt. Focus on prosperity. See yourself as a person that attracts it. I have an affirmation. I'm so happy and grateful now that money comes to me through multiple sources on a continuous basis. Think, I am so happy and grateful now that money comes to me through multiple sources on a continuous basis. That's the way it's working. That's the way it's working. Build the desire. Plant the idea in your subconscious mind. You're going to find the action, the attraction, it'll all happen because desire is the cause. So if you've got someone who just doesn't seem to have the desire, help them make a decision they're going to go after what they want. Most people don't. If you have employees, guarantee you, they don't know what they want. The truth is, they don't know they can have anything they want. If you're managing people, understand this. Management's not the direction of things. Management is a development of people. If you're going to develop people, your own children, anybody, you've got to find out what they want. You'll never motivate anybody if you're talking to them about something they don't want. You'll never build a desire to do something you don't want to do. It's got to be what you want. Want is the prerequisite. Want is the preamble to all growth. What do you want? Lincoln dreamed of freedom for the black slaves, put his dream into action, and barely missed living to see a united North and South translate his dream into reality. Marconi dreamed of a system for harnessing the intangible forces of the ether. Evidence that he did not dream in vain may be found in every wireless and radio in the world. Moreover, Marconi's dream brought the humblest cabin and the most stately manor house side by side. It made the people of every nation on earth backdoor neighbors. Helen Keller became deaf, dumb, and blind shortly after birth. Despite her greatest misfortune, she has written her name indelibly in the pages of history of the great. Her entire life has served as evidence that no one ever is defeated until defeat has been accepted as a reality. Beethoven was deaf. Milton was blind. But their names will last as long as time endures because they dreamed and translated their dreams into organized thought. A burning desire to be and to do is the starting point from which the dreamer must take off. The wonderful thing about these 13 principles is that each person will discover their own unique way to use them. They're the best tools you're ever going to find. And now, we're going to take a personalized look at exactly how you will do that. After each segment, I'm going to ask you to write down the principle. And underneath that, write down the very first thing that comes to your mind about how you can implement that principle in your life. So let's start with desire. Get out your notebook. Write desire in capitals at the top of the page. And then I'm going to use this principle of desire in the following way. And then finish that sentence in your notebook. Don't overthink it. Just tune into your own powerful intuition and record on paper what comes to you. Do it now. Faith is the ability to see the invisible, see in the screen of your mind what no one else can see. What's your definition of faith? When faith is blended with the vibration of thought, the subconscious mind instantly picks up the vibration, translates it into its spiritual equivalent, and transmits it to infinite intelligence. I think you'd agree faith is a pretty interesting subject. And I have found after studying this for over half a century, it's a subject not a lot of people understand. They talk about it a lot, but the faith is pretty thin. There's a wonderful story about the Flying Wallendas. one of those high wire acts where they walk on a wire from building to building. Well, apparently they were over at the gorge at Niagara Falls. Now, the gorge is a treacherous body of water underneath. Everything goes every which way. And you go in there, you're pretty well gone. Well, one of the Melindas had a wire across. And of course, there was all kinds of people there because they had advertised this. It was going to be televised. And the people are there watching and cheering this guy on. And he gets up and he walks right across from one side to the other. Beautiful, balancing his pole, feet stayed on the wire. And he comes back to the other side and he gets somebody to hand him a wheelbarrow. And he puts the wheelbarrow on it. He said, "You think I can make it?" And everybody's yelling, "Yeah, you can make it." And he said, this one guy, "Do you have faith I can make it?" And the guy says, "Yeah, I got faith." He said, "Get in the barrel." Boom. Like that, the guy's faith was gone. See, most people have blind faith. The first bump in the road and the faith is gone. Well, I'm going to get you, or suggest that you look at faith here from a totally different perspective. I had a man, Clarence Smithison. Clarence Smithison was in charge of equal opportunity with World Book Organization. And I was working with their group, and I asked him, I said, "Clarence, what's your definition of faith?" He said, "Faith is the ability to see the invisible, to believe in the incredible, and that will permit you to receive what the masses call impossible." Now I'm going to repeat that. Faith is the ability to see the invisible, see something no one else can see, to believe in the incredible, and that will permit you to receive what the masses call impossible. I'm going to ask you to keep that definition in mind, because without question, it's better than any definition of faith I've ever come across. I've read into the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Mormon, Book of Mormon, the Torah. Clarence beat them all for an explanation of faith. It's excellent. So to help you do that, I really want you to focus on you. And I want you to think of the mind, because it's all about the mind. It's about your marvelous mind. Now let's think about this for a second. If we're really thinking about ourselves, we go back to something I've already mentioned. Your spiritual DNA is perfect. The spiritual DNA, yours, is perfect. It doesn't require any modification or an improvement. Now, we're always trying to improve. What we want to do is get rid of the fluff, get rid of all the garbage, all those false concepts that bury the real truth of ourselves. There's a part of ourselves that's all-knowing, it's all-powerful, and it's ever-present. There's a part of you that's omnipresent, evenly present in all places at the same time. You can mentally go where anyone is. You can feel their energy. You say, "Oh, you can't do that." Now, do you understand why you're saying that? See, anything we don't understand, we have a tendency to criticize or ridicule when we first hear it. We'd be better to hold off on our criticism and our ridicule and attempt to really understand, because there's a part of you that is truly omnipresent. So, that's the real you. Now, I always ask, are you truly who you pretend to be? Interesting idea, isn't it? Are you who you pretend to be? It's not who you are that's holding you back. It's who you think you're not that's holding you back. Let me repeat that. It's not who you are that's holding you back. It's who you think you're not. See, the truth is, you are a spiritual being. You live in a physical body. Most people think this is me. They think they're the physical person. No. That's merely the instrument that you're living in. That's the house you're living in. You're a spiritual being living in a physical body. Most people think they're physical, and every now and then they have a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being, and you're having a physical experience. Now, what separates you from all the rest of animal life, I already mentioned, is the intellect. It's these higher faculties. And it's how we use these higher faculties that's going to dictate our emotional state. Because it's with our intellect that we choose ideas and we impress them upon the emotional or the subconscious mind, as we covered in another module. So we really want to pay close attention to that. Now let's look at it a different way. Let's look at it this way for a moment. We'll say spirit is 100% evenly present. Everything's spirit. Everything. The scientists tell you everything's energy. The chair you're sitting on is energy. The computer or the laptop that you're watching is energy. Everything's energy. Energy operates by law. It's 100% evenly present in all places at the same time. And it operates by a law. And one of the laws is the law of vibration. Now, the law of vibration operates on frequencies. There's an infinite number of frequencies. Your phone operates on a frequency. That should be indication enough that there has to be an infinite number, because there's certainly millions and millions of phones. And each one is on their own specific frequency. We know radio stations operate on frequencies. Television stations do. But so does the chair you're sitting on operate on a frequency. And it's because of the frequency we're operating on that you'll call it wood or cloth or whatever it might be. Think. Now, the highest frequency is pure spirit. The lowest is the physical, the grossest part. But in our particular life, when we're thinking about ourselves, sitting right in the center, between the spirit and the physical, is the intellectual. And that's the part that enables us to tap into the higher side of our own personality to improve the lower side of our personality. All the answers are in the higher part. Now, each one of these frequencies is hooked up to the one above and the one below. There's no line of demarcation where one stops and the other starts. They're all hooked together like the colors of a rainbow, all tied in together. And we want to try and grasp that, really understand that. Now, let's use this as an example. We'll say what you see sitting in front of you here is a glass of water. Now, let's think about that for a moment. The glass, what was it made of? It was made out of sand, wasn't it? Don't we call sand energy? Sand is energy. So how do we turn it into glass? We cause the sand to move at a different speed. We change the molecular structure of it. And so we cause it to go from something we call sand and we turn it into glass. We've got the ability to do that. We do. And then we can fill the glass up with water. And if we add heat to the water, we start calling it water. We call it water because of the speed it's vibrating at. And we alter the speed that it's vibrating at, then we call that cloud, steam. And if we continue to add heat, then we're going to call it air, ether, or gas. Now, you may at this point say, well, what's this got to do with faith? You're going to see it's got everything to do with faith, because when we tie it all together, you're going to understand what Clarence Smith has told us. So you see, the ether is the highest vibration. That's the non-physical. You cannot see it there. That's the unseen. But when it starts to move into form, which it always does, you might have remembered in another module, I talked about one of the laws, the perpetual transmutation of energy. Energy moves into form, through form, and back into form. Well, here's the ether moving into form, and it comes into a cloud-like state, the steam. And where does it go? It moves the only way it can, back into water. As above, so below. As below, so above. Now, we want to know that they're all tied in together, all hooked together. There's no place where it stops becoming water and starts becoming steam. There's no place where it stops becoming steam and starts to become air, ether, gas. It's all hooked together. It's all hooked together through the law of vibration. We're all hooked together through the law of vibration. Everything you want is hooked up to you by the law of vibration. Everything you're seeking is seeking you. We've got to put ourselves into harmony with the good that we desire. And we can do that. And the beautiful truth is, that's what Hill intended us to do. That's why he did his whole life research, 500 of the world's most successful people, and brought this information to us. Now let's keep thinking. When the intellect moves into action, we tap into the spiritual world, which is the thought world. Spirit's omnipresent, so are thoughts. You can think underwater, you can think when you're in a plane, you can think walking down the street. And when you think, you bring the energy into an idea state, into an astral state. And it's like Carnegie said, you hold that idea long enough, and that idea must move into form. That's where persistence comes in, but we'll talk about that at another time. But that idea must move into form. Must. That's an absolute law. You see, what we're doing here is we're working from the upside down and from the inside out. Now think of that for a moment. When you say everything's upside down, we think that everything's messed up. Truth is, when everything's upside down, it's in the right state. Because that's where you start. The upside, the thought, and you work to the bottom. And then you work from the inside out. You don't let present results control your thinking. You let your thoughts control your results. Look here. Here's an indication where a person's looking at the physical results. That controls their thinking, which controls their emotion, and everything else moves into place. They're getting what they don't want. But if you work from upside down and inside out, Then you're starting with your thoughts. You use your imagination. You build the image that you want. And that's when things really start to happen. Now let's take all this information and we'll tie it into our personal being and we'll turn it into faith. Here we build the model of the mind. Now we've talked about this a number of different times. You have the conscious mind, the subconscious, and the body. Now a power is flowing into your conscious mind. You can call it pure unadulterated spirit, you can call it energy, call it whatever you want. But as this flows into our mind, it has no form, none. We have the ability to build it in anything we want. And so we start to think of what we do want, and we build the picture of it. We hold that picture. And as we're holding the picture, we begin to impress it upon the subconscious or the subjective mind. Remember we said the subconscious had no ability to reject. It'll accept anything and accept it as real. What did Clarence Smithson say? He says, faith is the ability to see the invisible, see something that has never happened, to believe in the incredible, that there's a power within you to take any image you hold in your mind and literally move it into form in your life. So as you turn this image over to the subconscious mind, you're also sending that energy out into the universe with your thoughts. Thought waves are cosmic waves. They penetrate all time and space. And as you send that thought energy out, it resonates with everything, or it mixes with everything that it resonates with, everything on that frequency. And as you impress it upon your subconscious mind, the subconscious mind, which is universal intelligence, literally begins to move it into form with and through you. It alters the vibration your physical body is in. So if the body had to be altered, if it was a health situation, the body will be altered. The body is like a dumb terminal. It'll only do what the mind tells it. All things are possible. So he said, faith is the ability to see the invisible, see in the screen of your mind what no one else can see. Believe in the incredible, that there's a power within you that operates in a very orderly way and will execute the idea. Has to. Then it moves it into form through the body and the body acts on it. So you're sending your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. It's a 3-step process, no question about it. 1, 2, 3. The thoughts, the feeling, and the thing. And it moves into form. Now that's really what we call faith. We're working from the upside down and from the inside out. You see, whatever you want, it's already here. We were told to ask and you'll receive it. In fact, it's written, before you speak, I'll hear you. That's because the thought always precedes the word. It doesn't take talking. It's all vibration. It's all imaging. In the beginning is the word, the image in the mind. So you build that picture in your consciousness and you literally see it happen. You internalize it. You know it's happening because you know the body is nothing but an instrument of the mind. It'll only do what the mind tells us, and the mind will do whatever you turn over. So you turn the one idea over, the idea that you want to move into form in your life, and it instantly moves the body into that vibration. The body can only attract what it's in harmony with. You move the body onto a frequency that it had to be on to attract what it had to attract. So you got the thoughts, the feelings, the action, and the attraction. And it's when the action and attraction comes together that the results change. And that is the manifestation of faith. Blind faith will take you nowhere. Just talking isn't going to do it. Words are noise. You've got to actually see it in your consciousness. You got to be emotionally involved, and then you have to act on it. You do that, and you're going to create miracles in your life. I think it was Voltaire who said, miracle is a word to express the known effect of unknown causes. Whenever you see something happen, you don't know how it happened, it's a miracle. There are no miracles. There's only things happen that we don't understand. Back in the 60s, there was a science fiction writer, Robert Heinlein. He wrote a book, Strangers in a Strange Land. And he said something very interesting. He said, in absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by it. Do you know most babies are surrounded and raised by people who have no clearly defined goals? And they are involved in daily trivia, and they do become enslaved by it. You'll say, well, not my parents. Well, stop and think about it. I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just saying they had no clearly defined goals. If 90-some% of the population end up in a bad place, or certainly not a good place. They couldn't have any clearly defined goals. We have infinite potential. With clearly defined goals and focus, we will move towards them. I think Eileen was right. In absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia. We do things that don't amount to very much of no account. We just wake up and move into action. And pretty soon we're enslaved by those ideas. And we just do it for the rest of our life. It's part of the paradigm. Let's make certain we don't fall into that category. And if we're in it, let's get right out of it. Do you know, any reasonable person would be falling short when thinking of faith if Gandhi didn't come to their mind. I want you to think of it. Very small, insignificant looking little man. But he brought 200 million people together in faith. Got them to coalesce. Got them to move as one mind on an idea. Changed the whole world, really. Anyone that has studied what Gandhi did and then understands what he did with 200 million people, didn't do it just with one or two people, didn't just do it in town like a mayor or maybe a state as a governor. 200 million people. He brought them all together, got them to move in unison as one mind. You talk about a phenomenal mind, you're talking about Gandhi. When you're talking about faith, you're talking about what he did. Work toward that end. You'll have a lot of power. But everything happens one way. It happens by law. We have the opportunity to gain an understanding of the laws, gain an understanding of who we are, our relationship with the whole scheme of things, and that's when you begin to live the life that you were designed to live. Don't set any small goals. Set big goals. And don't wonder whether you're going to reach it. Know you're going to reach it. And you're always going to reach it right on the money, because that is what you've decided to do. That was your decision. A mind dominated by positive emotions becomes a favorable abode for the state of mind known as faith. Faith is the only agency through which the cosmic force of infinite intelligence can be harnessed and used by man. Get out your notebook, write faith in capitals at the top of the page. And then I'm going to use this principle of faith in the following way. And then finish that sentence in your notebook. Don't overthink it. Just tune into your own powerful intuition and record on paper what comes to you. Do it now. Make certain that you really understand the power of AutoSuggestion. This is not taught in school. You're not taught your higher faculties. No thought, whether it be negative or positive, can enter the subconscious mind without the aid of the principle of AutoSuggestion. The mere reading of the words is of no consequence unless you mix emotion or feeling with your words. You may remember where I mentioned Napoleon Hill said there were 30 major causes of failure and 13 principles for accumulating wealth. Well, one of those 13 principles is suggestion, AutoSuggestion. Do you know, every idea that reaches your subconscious mind will affect your life and is a suggestion. Doesn't matter where it comes from, it must come through your conscious mind. So it would have to fall under the category of AutoSuggestion. Now, you may not be paying any attention to what's going in. All advertising is based on suggestion. Suggestion is one of the most powerful forces, if not the most powerful force in your life. Many of the suggestions that are reaching your subjective mind are not serving you. They're not serving me. What we have to do is ask ourselves, is that idea serving me? Is it helping moving me in the direction I really want to move? Remember, everything originates in the mind. It's never her, it's never him, it's never it, it's never them, it's never the economy. It's the suggestions that are being fed into that powerhouse, your subjective mind. Do you know, a lot of people will listen and they really base what they're going to do in their business on the broadcasts about what's happening in the market. I never paid any attention to that. I've never paid attention to recessions. I've never paid attention to what the newspapers or the broadcasters are saying. I know that I'm working with a power that operates in a very orderly way, and it never changes. It operates by law. And when I understand those laws and understand that I am an expression of that power, you are an expression of that power, I govern everything then by the suggestions I feed into my mind. Because I know that those suggestions are ultimately going to manifest in form. Now, I've mentioned on many, many occasions a man by the name of Leland van der Waal, the big man. He and I became very, very close friends. He's gone now, God bless him, but he taught me this idea. I had been studying for over 9 years, trying to figure out why was I winning? Why was I being so successful? I had none of the qualifications that the world believes are necessary. I wasn't that smart. I didn't have any formal education. I had a bad work record. But all of a sudden, like that, things changed. I had an enormous amount of study, books that I got, programs that I took, recordings I listened to. But I couldn't get it all to come together. It's when he sat down with me, Val did, and he said, Bob, look at it like this. He said, everything originates in the mind. Whether people believe that or not is irrelevant. It's still the truth. The truth is rarely in the appearance of things. A lot of things you think are causing your results, they're not causing your results at all. It's inside. It's always inside. The conscious mind is so different from the subconscious. The conscious mind is our thinking mind. It's in our conscious mind that we think. We can actually just take this power that's flowing in and create thoughts. What are ideas? Ideas are nothing but a thought or a collection of thoughts directed towards an end. But we make thoughts. We can originate thoughts. We can pick up thoughts that are just in the ether. It's our thinking mind. We have higher faculties, okay? The conscious mind is also our educated mind. That's what school really focuses on, filling up with books. The conscious mind is the educated mind. The conscious mind is where the intellect is resident. It's very important you understand this. The intellect is where choices are made of how we're going to live our life. Most people are living through their senses. They go by what they see, hear, smell, taste, touch. That's living from the outside in. There is not one great leader anywhere in any book in history, religious or philosophical, that have told us to live from the outside in. Everyone told us to live from the inside out. Go to your sanctum sanctorum. Go to the quiet place. Go to your closet and close the door. Look within. They've all told us to do that. And you know something? 90% of the population look outside. They look at their bank account to determine whether they can afford to do something. Do you know something? When you really want to do something, you always find the money for it. Might be a new dress or maybe a new car. You really want it. You always find the money. So you see, it's not a matter can we, it's a matter of using these higher faculties properly. Quit living through your senses. Your senses are given to you. As long as you live in a physical body and correspond with the material universe, you're going to use them. The higher faculties, if you want to move ahead in life, you have to use them. You have perception, the will, memory, reason, imagination, and intuition. As Napoleon Hill referred to as the sixth sense. It's not really a sense. It's an intellectual factor. Now, all these higher faculties enable us to tap into universal intelligence. We can tap into that place where all knowledge is resident. That's how we move ahead. That's how we built the cell phone. That's how I'm able to communicate to you right now. You could be watching this on your phone. Isn't that one to think about? You could be sitting out in a boat watching this. You could be on the other side of the world and I could stream this right into your home. That is because someone used their higher faculties to tap into the universal part of their mind. Very important we understand this. Now, the universal part of your mind is your subconscious mind. It's also your emotional mind. See, the conscious mind is the intellect. Some people get hung up in the intellect. They trip over their own brain is what they're doing. They hold themselves back. They're absolutely brilliant, getting mediocre results. Why? It's because they never learn how to use the higher part of their own personality. You know, Albert Einstein said, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift. The rational mind is an obedient servant. He said, we've created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. He was so right. This is not taught in school. You're not taught your higher faculties. And yet they're what you have to use if you really want to excel in life. You don't have to use them if you want to excel in school. You have to use one of them. It's called memory. But the others, it's not really necessary. As long as you can remember what's in the book, you're going to pass. It doesn't mean you're going to pass in life, but you'll pass the exam in school. So keep thinking. Your conscious mind, we said, was a thinking mind. It's the educated mind. It's where the intellect is resident. Well, you see, the conscious mind has the ability to choose. You can choose what you want to do with your life. That's a choice, and no one can take that away from you. Viktor Frankl, who spent the war years in a concentration camp, said that while he was in the camp, he realized, regardless of the intellectual or physical abuse he was subjected to, and God knows he sure was subjected to a lot of it, no one could cause him to think something he didn't want to think. That is a choice. That's our freedom. We choose. We choose. You have the ability to choose. You have the ability to choose whether you're really going to internalize all this information or whether you're going to go along with the old paradigm and keep getting the same results. Make the right choice. Give yourself a powerful suggestion. The conscious mind has the ability to accept or reject anything that comes to it. Start paying attention. I was reading something the other day Stephen Covey said. He's gone now, God bless him. He said, you don't listen to hear, listen to understand. When you're talking to somebody, listen to understand where they're coming from. Most people just listen to hear. Let's realize that we can accept or reject anything that comes to our mind. And then, if we reject it and we want to give ourselves the right suggestion, we have the ability to originate. Now, our subconscious mind doesn't have that ability. Our subconscious mind must accept whatever is given to it. It's like the earth. The earth can't say, I don't want you to plant carrots. I'd like a rose bush here. It just takes whatever you give to it. You see? It must accept because it has no ability to reject. Now just think, there's a part of your mind, and it's the part where all the power flows to and through you. It can't reject anything. Every suggestion you get comes through your conscious mind. Many of them should be rejected. Your subconscious mind cannot differentiate between what's real and what's imagined. Whatever picture you build, that image must begin moving into form. So, why don't we, since this information is so obviously simple, why don't we use it? Well, let's take a look. Here we are. Here is an indication of an individual. They've got information coming at them through the radio, television, TV, neighbors. Remember I said you had these higher faculties? One of the higher faculties was reason. Well, it's reason that gives you the ability to think. Now, if you're thinking and you're listening to the broadcaster, and the broadcaster says, there's a recession coming. Times are going to be tough. Watch your spending. You want to ask yourself, would that idea serve me? Would it help me enjoy the life I want? Would it help me buy a better wardrobe, a nicer car, a bigger home, send the kids to better school? Would it help me do any of those things? Any of those physical little bells and whistles that I want in my life? No, it wouldn't. Well, if it wouldn't, why would you accept it? Why? What if the neighbor says, Harry, you can't do that. You ain't go to work, Betty. Forget it. I tried it myself. It doesn't work. What about if you read it on the front page of the newspaper, big, bold headlines? You can think. Ask yourself, is that going to serve me? That's the only criteria. That's the only question. And the answer would be no. So you could just say, wow, and those ideas are all wiped out. You know what the problem is? We don't do that. We don't do that. No, we don't. We don't even think. We leave our mind wide open. And that information dumps right into our subconscious mind. I remember it said the subconscious mind has no ability to reject. Why? Because we're programmed that way. That's the way the subconscious mind works. And we're programmed to just not think. Earl Nightingale used to say something that was brilliant. First time he said it, I laughed. I thought it was really funny. Then I thought about it, and I thought the guy's right. He said if the average person said what they were thinking, they would be speechless. Great educator Dr. Ken McFarland one time said, 2% of the people think, 3% think they think, 95% would actually rather die than think. Henry Ford one time said thinking is the hardest work there is, which is the probable reason so few people engage in it. Now you may be sitting there saying everybody thinks. Hardly anybody does. Start listening to the conversations going on around you. It's obvious people are not thinking or they'd never say what they're saying. Stand back and watch how people behave. They would never do the thing they're doing if they were thinking. They're not thinking. Clearly understand this. Mental activity does not constitute thinking. When any of your senses have been affected by an outside source, it activates pictures in your mind. Think of your refrigerator. I want you to get a picture of your refrigerator on the screen of the car. You weren't thinking of your refrigerator. When I said refrigerator, your hearing sense picked up the vibration, it fired it down the nerve passageway, resonated with a group of cells in your brain, and like that, those cells started to increase in amplitude of vibration, and the picture that was in them flashed on the screen of the mind. That's what conversation does. Words trigger pictures. And when we communicate, what we want to do is transfer our picture to them. We've got to use the right words, not the wrong words. We've got to understand what we're doing. We've got to understand that every suggestion that comes to our mind activates images. And most of it is not really good images. If 90-some% of the population are going in the wrong direction, we're getting wrong information 90-some% of the time. So we want to be very selective about the people that we spend a lot of time with. Doesn't mean that we're better than anybody, but I'm a busy guy. I don't have time to spend with a whole lot of people. The people I spend time with, I want them to stimulate me. I want to be able to help them. I want to mix in an environment that's positive because I know that everything that's going on is a suggestion. And I do know that I'm not thinking anywhere near as often as I choose to believe I am. So when I'm not thinking, my subconscious mind is wide open. And all the suggestions are coming in, they're going right into the subconscious mind, and they control the vibration I'm in. You see, if we take a look at how we arrived on the scene, we start to see how and why we're programmed that way. You're raised or brought into a home at birth where your subconscious mind is wide open, and whatever is going on around you goes right into your subconscious mind over and over and over again. In fact, that is where your self-image was formed, when you were just a little tiny gaffer. You may be an adult now and feel fairly inferior to a certain group of people. Why would you feel inferior? You're the highest form of creation on the planet, because that was programmed in. You say, well, people didn't say you were inferior. No, but it's the way they treated you. It's the way they treated themselves. Do you know most of us were raised by people who didn't have any clearly defined goals? As a kid, I grew up thinking a goal was for hockey or soccer. It would never be a point in life that I could say, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to be. So most of us are surrounded by people that, in absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by it. Well, if we're surrounded by people like that, what are we getting? How are we growing up? Why do 90-some% of the population go the wrong direction? Just test this. Ask people, what do you really want? They'll say, what do I want? Well, let me see. They don't know what they want. There isn't any clearly defined target. They say, well, if you could have anything you want, what do you want? Wow, I don't know. Then they'll name something that's maybe even considered to them silly. Why? Because they don't know what they want. The average person cannot give you a clearly written description of something that they really want. And they should be able to, because that is what moves us ahead. That is the prerequisite for success. Earl Nightingale's definition of success, I think, was one of the best. He and Napoleon Hill were great friends. He said success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. An ideal is an idea that you fall in love with. that you're intellectually, emotionally, and physically in love with. It's the progressive realization you are moving in that direction. Now you give a good qualifying statement for it. He said, you may be a business person who's accumulated maybe a couple million, you're working towards building a $5 million estate. And you're progressively moving in that direction. You're a successful person. You could be a student in school with a C and D average, and you're working towards an A and B. You're a successful person. One equally as successful as the other. It's got nothing to do with the goal. It has to do with the direction in life we're moving. Well, we want to move in the right direction, and to do that, we've got to feed ourselves the right information. It's the suggestion that we give ourselves. Now, why would a person accept the wrong information? Because they're programmed to. You see, the self-image is one idea. When you pick up a multitude of ideas, all the ideas that go around you when you're a child, that is how the paradigms form. It's formed genetically. You know, we are the confluence of a genetic pool that goes back for generations, much of which is pretty ridiculous. Some of our beliefs are absurd, but we don't question. We say, why do you do that? Well, I believe it. Why do you believe it? Most people don't know why they believe it. You see, our belief system is based upon our evaluation of something. And frequently, if we reevaluate a situation, our belief about the situation will change. The problem with most people is they never reevaluate their beliefs. They just, that's it. You see? Well, everything that went into our subjective mind when we were a child became a paradigm. A paradigm is a multitude of ideas that are fixed in our subconscious mind that control our behavior. A fixed idea is better known as a habit. So you could say a paradigm is a multitude of habits that are fixed in our subconscious mind that is controlling our life. Now, this started prior to us ever going to school. And here we are, 20, 30, 40, 60 years later, same paradigm. Oh, we've gathered lots of knowledge. We went to school, we did the deal, we got the information. I watched the boss. They told me how to do this job. I know how to do the job. That doesn't mean you're going to do it. Every salespeople knows how to close a sale. Hardly any of them do it. Think. Everybody knows how to properly treat other people. That doesn't mean they do it. The paradigm controls us. It's a program in our subconscious. It's got nothing to do with what we know. What we want to do now is take this information and realize we can alter it through repetition of a positive idea. Now think, through the repetition of a positive idea, that is called AutoSuggestion. It's a suggestion from myself to myself. Now, if I'm listening to an ad on the radio or on television, that is also AutoSuggestion because it comes into my conscious mind. I've got the ability to reject it. The fact that I accepted it and let it in, I did it. So you can't blame someone else. I learned this a long time ago. Someone else may be responsible for making you who you are. You are responsible for changing it. Don't blame them. They did the best they could with what they had. We want to begin now to originate, because we can originate, very powerful positive ideas and feed them into our subconscious mind. And these positive ideas are going to move us into a good vibration. Now, if you really want to do a job, take a look at your results and then work backwards. The result is the cause of a behavioral pattern. And the behavioral pattern's positive is probably a habit. And say to yourself, that habit is not giving me the result I want. So how do you change it? You sit down and you write down the result you're getting. You say, I don't like that result. Never enough money to go around. Always $1 short and a day late. You know, put these things down. Always sleep in. I don't like sleeping in. I don't like being $1 short. Write down the polar opposite. I'm so happy and grateful now that I am awake on time. When I wake up, I get up. I'm so happy and grateful now that my bank account keeps growing. My income keeps growing. Now, this may sound ridiculous at the start, because it was to me. But remember I said I would do exactly what he told me to do. That's what he told me to do, so that's what I did. And you know something? If you feed those positive statements in over and over and over again, you're going to find the behavior will start to change. What's it based on? The idea that you originated. You say, I don't like that result. It was caused by this behavior. What caused the behavior? It was the idea that was fixed in the subconscious mind that caused you to do that. What do you want? Decide what you want. What's the polar opposite? Having money problems? Having lots of money. What's the polar opposite of sleeping in? Getting up on time. When I wake up, I get up. You can do this with anything. Study your results, take a look at the behavior that's causing it, write out the polar opposite in the present tense, and then keep writing it, keep repeating it, keep seeing it over and over and over and over again. Do you know what will happen? It'll start to change. Suggestion. It's the most powerful force there is. Make certain that you really understand the power of autosuggestion. Napoleon Hill said it was one of the 13 principles that help people accumulate wealth. And God only knows, he sure knew something about creating wealth. He talked to all the people, 500 of them, that all had created enormous wealth. And he found there was a golden thread running through their life. Their self-talk was upbeat. Their self-talk was possible. You may be sitting there saying, I don't talk to myself. Say, you're doing it while I'm talking to you. Self-talk, autosuggestion. Make sure you're giving your directive to this universal part of you to get to have to be what you want. You got to be it. Goethe, the German philosopher, he was so good. He said, before you can do something, you must be something. You make the picture present tense, you get emotionally involved. Autosuggestion. All suggestion is autosuggestion, and suggestion is the most powerful force in the world. Make certain you're going to reject all negatives and you're going to start to accept the positives. Will you do that tomorrow? Probably not. But you can start moving toward it, and you'll start to get better at it, and better at it, and better at it. Just ask yourself, would that suggestion serve me? If the answer is no, get rid of it. I don't care how logical it is. I don't care how practical it would be to accept it. I wonder what the Wright brothers' neighbors thought of them over in Dayton, Ohio, back around 1900, 1903. They were bicycle mechanics. There'd been millions spent on research, how to get a plane in the air. Millions by the government and all kinds of other researchers for a long time. Man couldn't fly. Anything heavier than air is going to be attracted towards the center of the world. They didn't care. They could see themselves flying, and that's the only suggestion they give to themselves. And lo and behold, they introduced us to New Kingdom. Go ask them if autosuggestion works. Will we be saying, I see it, Orville. I see it, brother. I can see it. Can you see it? Can you see what you want? Autosuggestion. Keep feeding your subconscious mind. It has no ability to reject. It must accept whatever you give to it. Just give it food that serves you, that feeds your desire, that causes you to feel better than you're already feeling. Suggestion, the most powerful force there is. Out of the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever God's may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Get out your notebook. Write autosuggestion in capitals at the top of the page. And then I'm going to use this principle of autosuggestion in the following way. And then finish that sentence in your notebook. Don't overthink it. Just tune into your own powerful intuition and record on paper what comes to you. Do it now. Specialized knowledge. If you haven't got it, get it. I see specialized knowledge as the keys to the kingdom. There are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge. Now we're going to take a look at the fourth step, moving toward riches. And it comes under the heading Specialized Knowledge. Personally, this is the one that really made all the difference for me at the start. And it could make all the difference for you at the start. I see specialized knowledge as the keys to the kingdom if you want. It'll help you get anything you want. And without specialized knowledge, you're probably going to work pretty hard all your life and really not collect too much. He'll make it very clear there's two types of knowledge. There's general and there's specialized. Now, general knowledge, regardless of the quantity or the variety, is of little value. Knowledge will not attract money unless it is organized and intelligently directed through the practical plans of action to the definite end of earning money or anything else that you may want to accomplish. See, it's not just the money. You may have another goal that you're shooting at that maybe doesn't fall under the heading of money. But it takes specialized knowledge and it has to be directed towards that end. You see, Henry Ford understood this. A lot of people do not understand this even today. Now keep in mind what we're talking about now goes way back, over almost 100 years, certainly well over 50 or 75 years. When Ford was really starting to move, he took a Chicago newspaper to court. He had a lawsuit for libel. They had written articles on him and they referred to him as an ignorant pacifist. And he took exception to that and he took him to court. Well, when they got to court, of course, the newspapers, they were trying to justify why they said this. And so they put Ford on the stand and they started to ask him all kinds of questions. And they wanted to know who Benedict Arnold was. And then they wanted to know how many armed forces or soldiers did the British send over for the upheaval in 1776. Ford got a little disgusted with the questions and he leaned over and he looked at the prosecutor and he pointed his finger. He said, "Let me tell you something." He said, "If I wanted to have this information, I'd have it. But," he said, "I don't need to gather it myself." He said, "I have a row of buttons on my desk. And if I want the answer to any of these silly questions that you're asking, I just have to press a button and a person that has all that information will come to me." He said, "Those questions are useless in my line of work." Now, when he said, if I needed this, I would have it. I don't need it. So why would I want to clutter my mind up with a bunch of useless information for the sole purpose of answering questions? He won the court case. Everybody in court knew that this explanation or this little talk that Ford was giving to the prosecutor wasn't that of an ignorant person. He was a highly intelligent person. He understood something about education. Now, I want you to think about that. Ford had information. It was specialized information. It was directed towards a particular end. And here we are today, over 100 years later. We're still buying his cars, and we're still driving in his cars, and we're still telling the story about the man that was considered stubborn, obstinate. No, he was focused. He understood something that most people didn't understand. Most people still don't understand. If you really want to make it happen, you've got to follow Ford's model. Get the specialized information directed towards a particular end. See, Carnegie put this very well. He said the accumulation of great fortunes calls for power. And he said power is acquired through highly organized and intelligently directed specialized knowledge. But he said the person who has the knowledge or the person who collects the fortune doesn't necessarily have to have the knowledge. You need help. Everyone needs help. Now, as we go along in this particular fourth step to riches, specialized knowledge, I'm going to share 4 stories that Napoleon Hill shares, and they're excellent stories. And these 4 people benefit greatly from the concept of specialized knowledge. One of the people I want to talk about is a man by the name of Stuart Austin Weir. The second one I want to talk about, the name is not mentioned, but he was a salesperson for a grocery store. The third one was somebody that helped that salesperson. It was a home typist, a lady that worked at home. And the fourth one, who was close associate of Knute Rockne, the great football coach. This man's name is Dan Halpin. Now, you're going to find these stories interesting, and the one story literally caused me to change everything that I was doing in my life and helped me earn a respectable amount of money. Now, before we get into these stories, I think Napoleon Hill brings out something that every one of us really want to clearly understand. He points out that successful people in all columns, they never stop acquiring specialized knowledge related to the major purpose, business, or profession that they're involved in. Those who are not successful usually make the mistake of believing that the knowledge acquiring period ends when they finish school, which is pretty ridiculous if you think about it. We're dealing with an infinite source of supply when we're dealing with knowledge. The truth is that school does little more than put us in the way of learning how to acquire practical knowledge. Now, let's take a look at the first person I wanted to talk about, Stuart Austin Weir. Keep in mind, this story takes place right bang just after the start of the Great Depression, way back 1929. And some people say it went to around 33 or 34. Truth is, it went right till 39, if you do some deep research, until the Second World War broke out, and that was more or less the end of the Depression. But right around the beginning of it, Stuart Weir was in the construction business. He was a construction engineer. And there wasn't a whole lot of construction going on when there was no money, so he found himself out of work. Now, what he did, he decided he was going to switch careers and become a lawyer. Now, this wasn't any small decision. And he wasn't just a young guy that had no responsibility. He was married. He was married at the time. He was over 40, but he decided that he would become a lawyer. And he became a very successful lawyer. He did in 2 years what it would take the average person to do in 4 years. And then he started his own practice in Dallas, Texas. And the last that Napoleon Hill was writing, he had a very successful practice and he was turning away business. So you see, here was a guy that found himself in a bad situation. He spent a lot of time becoming an engineer, but there were no calls for engineer. And so he thought, what can I do? And he decided on law. Now, he had to go back to school and he had to go through the bar. He had to do a lot of studying. But he took special courses, he made it happen, and he made it happen fast, and he became a very successful lawyer. Now, the second story that I want to share that Hill brings out beautifully is about a man that worked in selling for a grocery store. And again, this all happened right around the same time as Weir found himself in trouble. Well, this salesperson found himself in trouble. He found himself out of work. Now, he had some bookkeeping knowledge, but he went away and he took special courses in accounting. And he familiarized himself with the latest bookkeeping office equipment material. And he decided he was going to start a bookkeeping company. And he thought he'd start with the store he was working for, which was a good decision. Now, he ended up with over 100 stores. In fact, he became so successful that he put everything on a truck. He ended up with a number of trucks. He had a new modern bookkeeping machinery going. He had a fleet of bookkeeping offices on wheels, and very, very successful. Now, he was given the idea of doing this, and when he was given the idea, he liked the idea because he did have some knowledge, but he had no knowledge of how to turn it into money. And so he started to look for help. He found a woman at home that was very good at typing, and she took pictures. She put together a folder for him, and she was going to show him how to put this to work. It was so successful that he ended up with a fleet of trucks. You see, the book that she put together, Napoleon Hill referred to as the silent salesperson, because this book was providing how he was going to provide service. It was a great idea. And it was all put together in a book where everything was explained, all the benefits. You see, you don't sell the bookkeeping service, you sell the benefits of this bookkeeping service. This woman seemed to understand that. And she outlined it all in this beautiful booklet, in this presentation folder. And that's what turned this salesperson that found himself out of work into a very successful business person, he went and took advanced courses in bookkeeping and built himself a super successful business. Now, the woman herself had a son. This is written so well, I want to share it exactly the way Napoleon Hill shared it. He said, the idea here described was born of necessity to bridge an emergency which had to be covered, but it did not stop by merely serving one person. The woman who created the idea had a keen imagination. She saw in her newly born brainchild the making of a new profession, one that is destined to render valuable service to thousands of people who need practical guidelines in marketing personal services. Now, listen how she took the idea. Then I'm going to add a personal story to this that is every bit as powerful. Spurred to action by the instantaneous success of her first prepared plan to market personal services, this energetic woman turned next to the solution of a similar problem for her son, who had just finished college, but had been totally unable to find a market for his services. The plan she organized for his use was the finest specimen of merchandising of personal services that I have ever seen. Now, Hill wrote that. He said when the plan book had been completed, it contained nearly 50 pages of beautifully typed, properly organized information, telling the story of her son's native ability, schooling, his personal experiences, and a great variety of other information too extensive for description. The plan book also contained a complete description of the position her son desired, together with a marvelous word picture of the exact plan he would use in filling this position. The preparation of the plan book required several weeks' labor, during which time its creator sent her son to the public library almost daily to procure information needed in selling his services to the best advantage. She sent him also to all the competitors of his prospective employer, gathered from them vital information concerning their business methods, which was of great value in the formation of the plan that he intended to use in filling the position that he was seeking. When the plan had been finished, it contained more than a half a dozen very fine suggestions for the use and benefit of the prospective employer. The suggestions were put into use by the company. One may be inclined to ask, why go to all this trouble to secure a job? The answer is straight to the point. Also, it is dramatic because it deals with a subject which assumes a proportion of a tragedy with millions of men and women whose sole source of income is personal services. Keep in mind, this is all going on right at the start of the Great Depression, 1929, 30, right through to 39. Well, here's the answer. The answer is doing a thing well never is trouble. The plan prepared by this woman for the benefit of her son helped him get the job for which he applied at the first interview at a salary fixed by himself. Moreover than this is important. The position did not require the young man to start at the bottom. He began as a junior executive at an executive salary. Why go to all the trouble, do you ask? Well, the one thing, the planned presentation of this young man's application for a position clipped off no less than 10 years of time that he would have required to get to the point where he began. You see, preparation is the key. It's definitely the key, and it was here. Now I want to share something with you. Before I go into Dan Halpin's story, which is rather interesting, I want to read you the last paragraph in Specialized Knowledge. If you have imagination, this chapter may present you with an idea sufficient to serve as the beginning of the riches you desire. Remember, the idea is the main thing. Specialized knowledge may be found just around the corner, any corner. Well, I have to go back many, many years to the early 60s when I first picked up Napoleon Hill's material. I started studying Napoleon Hill's material and I started cleaning offices. All I wanted to do was earn some money. Somebody said there was good money cleaning offices. I said, I'm not proud, I'll clean offices. The man said, if you're going to clean them, Don't clean them for somebody else, clean them for yourself. So here I find myself in business for myself, no business experience, no formal education, and absolutely no idea on selling. I did not know anything about selling. I put together a proposal in the early 60s that I still use today. We would go into an office, take a look at it today. Tomorrow, we would go back with a presentation on how we were going to clean this office. It looked like we were going to buy the building. Now, it might have only been a 500 square foot office, might be 2,000 square feet, but we had a very, very beautifully prepared presentation. And it was the presentation that did the selling. I still use that presentation today, over a half a century later, if I'm going into a company. And I'll tell you how we do it. We put a cover page. It's all in a beautiful folder, but there's a cover letter where we thank them for the opportunity of presenting our proposal. Then in the folder, there's a divider page, and it says observations. And then there's a section on observations, and we tell them what we found when we wandered around and looked at their office. And we point out that if they're getting our office cleaned by a service, they're not getting what they're paying for. And we point it all out in detail. Then there's a divider on recommendations, and we make recommendations on how we're going to come in and change everything. The recommendations cover what's in the observation. After the recommendations, there's another divider page, and it's on investment. And we point out by hiring us, it was an investment. And there you would have the cost of the service. Then the next page would be on conclusion. The conclusion was reselling what we pointed out in the observations and what we bought out in the recommendations. And that's where we closed in the conclusion. We had this put together, you would honestly think we were going to buy the building, in a beautiful folder, beautifully typed. And it all came from how that woman prepared the presentation for her son, and prior to that, the success of the grocery salesperson, getting new business in bookkeeping. Well, you know, that all came back to me as I was preparing for this, and I thought, that's where that presentation started. I've shared that kind of a presentation with a lot of people. But do you know, like that, it started our business and it took off like a rocket. We started opening offices in different cities. I went into Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, London, England. A very successful cleaning business prior to leaving that business and come into the business I'm in now to go to work with Earl Nightingale and Lloyd Conan. But you see, it was the last chapter in Specialized Knowledge where they pointed out, Hill pointed out, that something you've just read could change your business. It may be the start of you earning a lot of money. Well, it certainly was for me. And it can be for you. Do you know, the same silent salesperson that I was using, that I picked up from that woman's work with the grocery salesman, that same silent salesperson helped me build a business in this industry. And I'm going back to the 70s here. But I'd put together a proposal, and we sold almost all of Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. Worked the whole country. We went from there, we went into Imperial Life Insurance Company, worked that entire company. We went to the Prudential of America, worked the entire country. And it was all through the start by laying out what we were going to do in this proposal. And although we were dealing with thousands of people, the proposal was for a seminar for one person, just one. I knew that it would be multiplied. That's all I had to sell. I had to sell them on the idea of what I could do for one person. Because you see, they hire their salespeople one person at a time. We raised the sales by hundreds of millions of dollars. In fact, one retired VP in Prudential said he figured we took it up over $1 billion. And it was all put together in this silent salesperson. So although we used it to secure the cleaning of an office of maybe 500 or 5,000 square feet, we also used it with one of the largest companies in the world. It was the same idea. You get the right idea and you follow what Napoleon Hill has laid out. You cannot lose. Do you know, a lot of people thought, Proctor, you're really smart. I wasn't very smart. I was just aware. I paid attention to what Napoleon Hill said. I paid attention to the ideas that were executed. Because although those ideas were executed, you know, almost 100 years ago, right in the midst of an enormous depression. Those ideas are sound today. The idea has nothing to do with the conditions, the circumstance, or anything. It has to do with what's going on in our mind. Study these principles very carefully. Now, as I talk to you about Dan Halpin, I want you to stop and think about this very, very clearly. Dan Halpin was the manager. In fact, he was in charge of managers for the Notre Dame football team when Knute Rockne was the coach. Knute Rockne still is, very, very well-known football guy. And he was a very strong man. He influenced anyone that came in contact with him. Well, Dan Halpin was in his last year in university, and he was the head manager of all the managers. They put all the equipment and everything together for the players. When Dan Halpin graduated from university, right around that time, around 1930, he found himself graduating right into the heart of a depression. Now he got a couple of jobs, one I think in the movie industry and one in the radio or something like that, and kept losing those jobs. Then he got a position selling for an electric hearing aid company and on straight commissions. Now this is a job anyone could get, and Halpin knew it. And he continued on with this for 2 years. He did not like it, but you know, in the middle of a depression, I guess you take what you can get. He not only took what he could get, but he made up his mind he was going to get himself in a position where he would be seen. And his first job that he aimed at, the first target he had, was to be the assistant sales manager. And he did become the assistant sales manager, and he became very, very successful. He became so successful in this that a man by the name of A.M. Andrews, who was the chairman of the Dictograph Company, a competitor of Halpin's company, started to pay attention to what was going on. And he could see that this other company was taking a lot of his business away. Andrews wanted to know what was going on. So he sent for this man. He said, "Bring him to me." Halpin went, sat down with Andrews, who was the chairman of the board, and when the meeting was over, Halpin was his sales manager. Then to test Halpin, to see just how good this guy is, Andrews went away for 3 months to Florida on a vacation, and he left the guy to sink or swim. Halpin did not sink. He had some great training, you see. Knute Rockne's spirit of all the world loves a winner, and there's no time for a loser, was burned right into Halpin's mind. He eventually became very successful. He became the vice president of the company and then the general manager of the Acousticon and silent radio division. This is a job that most men would be proud to earn after 10 years employment with Andrews. Halpin turned the trick in just 6 months. Now think, it was Halpin's relationship with Rockne that really made the difference. And it made a big difference. You see, Rockne was one of the world's greatest leaders. Napoleon Hill went on to explain. He said, "I believe that close association with one who refuses to compromise with circumstances that he does not like is an asset that can never be measured in terms of money." Pay close attention to who you're associating with. If you're with people that, they bend, they say, "Well, I can't because of this," get away from those people. You have the ability to change anything. Now, you may not be able to change conditions or circumstances, but I'll tell you, you can change. You can change your perception of the situation. And that's what successful people do. That's what these principles are all about. You change your perception, you change your life. Specialized knowledge. If you haven't got it, get it. It's changed my life like night and day. No question about it. It's helped me create a business, because that's what our business is all about. It's about specialized knowledge. How to take Hill's stuff, narrow it right down into easily understood principles that you can take and use to change your business, to change your life.
Knowledge will not attract money unless it is organized and intelligently directed through practical plans of action to the definite end of accumulation of money. Get out your notebook, write specialized knowledge in capitals at the top of the page. And then I'm going to use this principle of specialized knowledge in the following way. And then finish that sentence in your notebook. Don't overthink it. Just tune into your own powerful intuition and record on paper what comes to you. Do it now.
Right now, I want you to focus on imagination. Everything you might need to create anything you want to create is there.
The imagination is literally the workshop wherein are fashioned all plans. The impulse, the desire, is given shape, form, and action through the aid of the imaginative faculty of the mind.
You may remember when we started, I pointed out this whole series was about you. Now think about this. I'm going to ask you to activate your imagination in this particular lesson because it's about imagination. I also quoted Einstein, and I pointed out that he said our intuitive mind was a sacred gift, while our rational mind was an obedient servant. He said we've reached a point in society where we honor the servant and we've forgotten the gift. See, it's the intuitive mind that Einstein was referring to that separates us from all the rest of life. It puts us above everything. We're the highest form of creation on the planet, so far as we know. And it's only through the use of these higher faculties that we can demonstrate the genius that lies within every one of us. Genius isn't something that's given to one and not another. Genius is something that's developed. It's something we have within us. But if we're going to develop the genius within us, we have to begin developing the higher side of our own personality. You know, I have 3 little dogs at home. They can all see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Now think about that. All the other form of animal life can see, hear, smell, taste, touch. But we've got higher faculties, and these are the faculties that give us the ability to create our environment. You'll also probably remember where I pointed out we're the only creature on the planet that is totally disoriented in our environment. All the rest of the little creatures, they blend in. They're completely at home in their environment. We don't blend in. And we don't blend in because we have been given the ability to create our own environment. You see, the environment that you're in, the environment that I'm in, we have created it. We may say, oh no, I wouldn't have done that. Well, the truth is you really have. You've heard that you know the truth and the truth will set you free. Well, let's understand the truth about what we have working in our favor. All we have to do is activate these higher powers. Now you have perception, a phenomenal mental tool. You shift your perception, you've changed all of life. Think of that. Wayne Dyer pointed that out very clearly. Wayne said, when you change the way you look at something, what you look at changes. He's right. Perception. We can look at anything from a different angle. Great way to solve problems. You have reason. Reason is what gives us the ability to think. One of the highest functions that we're capable of. We can just take a mental faculty, pluck into the no thing, and build thoughts. And put them together, we can build ideas, and then we can create the ideas. And of course, we have the imagination, which we're going to go into. Take a look around you. Look at everything around you that was made by a man or woman. It was all created first in the imagination. See, the truth is everything's created twice. Once in the mind, and then once in our material world. Van Gogh was asked one time how he did such beautiful work. He said, I dream my painting, and then I paint my dream. Do you know, we can do that. You have the will. The will's a phenomenal mental tool. You know that if you're going to win at anything, you've got to stay focused on it. And focus is not an easy thing for the average person. You know, we all respond to outside stimuli, and there's so much of it going on around us. There's noises and sounds and lights and goodness knows what. They all activate cells in our brain. It causes mental activity. Only when you're focused, you cut all that out. It's almost like you shut your senses down when you focus. It almost sounds like a choice to do it. You know, no. The will is what gives us the ability to stay focused. And if you're going to build a rocket that will take a person to the moon and bring him back safely to Earth, there's going to have to be a lot of focus. Not just by one, definitely by the leaders, and then by all the important players on the team. You've got to be able to lock onto one idea. Most people do not know how to do that. The average person's span of concentration is in seconds. Go ask any advertising people, they'll tell you that. And it seems to be shortening every day. But we can stretch it. We can get to a point where we can focus on one thing for a long period of time. And you know, it's through focus that you get power. Power flows into our consciousness and it flows out. When you're focused, the power increases in amplitude of vibration. You're giving more energy to whatever it is that's growing. And Emerson made it very clear one time. He said, the only thing that can grow is the thing you give energy to. You've got memory. Do you know there's no such thing as a bad memory? You'll often hear people say, I just can't remember that. Everyone has a perfect memory. Jerry Lucas, ex-pro basketball player, was out on the West Coast a number of years ago teaching people how to memorize the Bible. We had a man, Abdullah, who was a psychiatrist from Saudi Arabia, come over here to one of our programs one time. He was teaching people to memorize the Quran. There's no such thing as a bad memory. There's weak memories. You see, the memory, the will, the imagination, these are all mental muscles. And you can exercise them and they become very strong. And last but not least on this list is intuition. I have developed a fairly highly evolved intuition, but only because I chose to, and if I can, you can. Like I can walk by a person, I can pretty well tell you what they're like. Because everything goes on the inside, shows on the outside, you show it through vibration, you see? And it's your intuition that reads that. Right now, I want you to focus on imagination. But to focus on the imagination and use it properly, I think we have to bring all of them into play. Where the senses help you correspond with the material world that you are a part of, as long as you live in your physical body, and correspond and communicate with the physical world, you'll use your senses. But if you want to go beyond the physical, if you want to go where you have never been, if you want to go where no person has ever been, you must use your higher faculties. There's only two sources of reference you can go to find out anything about yourself. One science and one theology. And if you dig deep enough, you're going to find that they mostly all teach pretty much the same thing. They teach one God. Scientist says there's just energy. Everything's energy. Nothing rests. As we start to dig into it, now this isn't a lesson on religion. First of all, I'm not qualified to do that, nor is it a lesson in science. This is a lesson in helping you understand you. It was put together by a man that spent his entire life studying 500 of the world's most advanced and most productive individuals. So the information that you're getting is sound. It's been used by people probably much brighter than ourselves and used successfully. Now, when you use these higher faculties, what you're doing, you're leaving this physical world and you're diving into universal intelligence. All science and all theology both clearly indicate nothing is created or destroyed. Think about that. Nothing is created or destroyed. All the knowledge there ever has been or ever will be is already here. All the power there ever has been or ever will be is already here. So you got all the power, all the knowledge, that's 100% evenly present in all places at the same time. That would be within you, or that would be within me. How do we reach it? Well, we have to leave the physical world, per se, and take these higher faculties and dive into it. And that's really what you're doing when you start imagining things. You can sit quietly in a room and look around the room, then close your eyes and rearrange all the furniture. And some people do that. In fact, some people make a living out of doing that. You can take and look at a sheet of paper that has nothing on it and mentally go into your imagination and then start to draw a picture of the building that you say you're going to build. You see where I'm going? You do see where I'm going. Let's take the clothes you're wearing or the jewelry that you have on. Where did it come from? It came from the marvelous minds of individuals. I remember when I was a child, there were no synthetic fibers, and I lived in northern Canada. It was cold. Snow was deep. And when they put us outside, they had so many clothes on us we could hardly walk. But we needed those clothes to keep warm. Today, you can put something as thin as an onion skin on a child and put them out in sub-zero weather and they'll be warm. Where did that come from? Oh, it was already here. Somebody created this kind of coverings for clothes in their imagination, and then they went ahead and created it on the physical plane. Now you can do that. The clothes you're wearing were first created in the mind of the person. What do you want? What do you really want? Don't compromise. Compromise leads to more compromise. Put yourself into a totally relaxed state. Let your mind wander. And understand when you do that, you are leaving the conscious world and you're going into this subconscious sea of everything. It's the universal intelligence. Now, many people think there's hundreds of names that you can put on this part of life, but it is universal intelligence. It's a pure spiritual field. It's where all knowledge and all power is. And we can go there. I happen to believe we were created in God's image. And probably you do too. The problem we have is how we created God. What is God? We created God in our image. But if we go the other way and we start to understand that we've got all this power and we've got all these faculties, where does it start? It starts to create the kind of life we want in our own mind with our imagination. And it's with our imagination that we fantasize. And all creation begins in the form of fantasy. That's where we just freely let our mind wander in this part of life where everything is. All the beauty, all the things, everything you might need to create anything you want to create is there. And you just have to build a picture of the end result you want. How do you want to live? Where do you want to live? Who do you want to associate with? What kind of health do you want to enjoy? What kind of a financial situation do you want to live in? What kind of a business do you want to build? Right now, the director of this particular series is building images in his mind of how he will edit, how he will add the B-roll, all the backdrops. He'll add it all in. And what you're watching now is a long ways from where I am right at this moment. First of all, it's miles away, and it's off into another place, another part of life. Well, that's where you want to go, and that's what you want to do. Do you know, it's been said the imagination is the greatest nation in the world. It goes beyond nations. It is what brings all nations together. It's what makes us all the same. And if we would understand that, then there's no need of competition. Competition is a dumb game. Amateurs compete, professionals create. We're creative beings. Just know that any part of your business, any part of your life, you can take your imagination and you can go way beyond where you're at. And you can build these images, you can dig into it, and it's phenomenal. All knowledge, all power is there. So when you sit down, talk to your body, tell it to relax. You might start by telling your jaw to relax. Do it right now. You weren't even aware your jaw wasn't relaxed, are you? Let your stomach muscles, let all the abdomen, let it all hang out. Doesn't that feel good? It does feel good, doesn't it? Then let this relaxed feeling just sort of wash through your whole being. Just visualize a beautiful lavender energy pouring right into the crown of your head, and it moves through every fiber right out your toes. And as it does, you move into a very relaxed state. And in this relaxed state, just let your eyes go closed. And then let your mind dive into this area where all knowledge and all power is. And begin building a picture of what you want, finished, complete, and you're enjoying it. And you're sharing it. And make sure you share it. You don't share it, you don't enjoy it. Learn to willingly give and graciously receive. But know this, whatever it is in your life you want to improve, that's where you start. And understand this, there's no reason why you cannot. You're the only one that can stop you from doing this. No one can do it for you, and no one can stop you. So we're going to dig into this beautiful area of universal intelligence where everything is, and we are going to build in our mind the picture of the life we want. Now, it may be specific and zeroed right in on your business. It may be specific and zeroed right in on the health of your body. Understand this, there's no such thing as incurable disease. That's a misnomer. There's only disease that we haven't created a cure for. But also understand this, the mind is where everything originates. And all things are possible. My goodness, there's enough evidence around it. We've got to be able to believe that today. All things are possible for you. What is it you want to improve? That's where you start. lock into it, fall in love with it. Love is when you bring something together. When two people are in love, they have a strong rapport intellectually. They love talking about the same ideas. They have a strong rapport emotionally. Their feelings are in sync. They're on the same frequency. And then, of course, they have a strong physical relationship. Well, when you're in love with an idea, you're intellectually involved, you're emotionally involved, and it is control of your body. There's nothing like it. It's called an ideal. And that is really what success is all about. It's the professional way of looking at things. Is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Begin with your imagination. Begin using it properly. Don't let it lay dormant. Most people use their imagination for something they don't want. They start worrying, and they build a picture of what they don't want. Don't do that. Absolutely refuse to do that. Say, I'm never going to go where I don't want to go. And certainly not in your imagination. You'll be creating it. Only imagine what you do want. Image, imagination, think. Everything you're going to improve starts out in an image. Present tense, get emotionally involved, and you'll find your body will just move toward it. And as you move toward it, it's going to begin to move toward you. Use your imagination effectively, creatively, productively. Do you know, our only limitation is the limitation that we put on our imagination or the lack of use of the imagination. Now, there's something else about imagination that you really want to understand. There's two forms of imagination. There's creative imagination and there's synthetic imagination. The creative imagination is where you start with nothing but pure energy, diving into this universal pool where all knowledge and all power lies. And you're creating something in your mind that no one has ever created before. You're bringing something into the physical world that no one's ever done. That is creative imagination. Synthetic imagination is where someone may look at a chair and they think, that's pretty good. I think I'll put two of them together and we'll call it a love seat. I think we'll maybe put three of them together and cover them in soft cushions, and we'll call that a sofa. That's synthetic imagination. That's where someone looks at a dress and they think, if I just change the alterations on that a little bit, it would look so much nicer on her. That is synthetic imagination. See, the synthetic imagination is taking something that is and improving or changing it. I've often wondered about who the cat was that created the first chair. I would imagine somebody was sitting on a log at one time and had nothing to lean against, so he thought he'd put a back on it, and that may be the first chair. And ever since then, we've been improving. We got rocking chairs and swivel chairs and high chairs, low chairs, double chairs. But synthetic imagination is every bit as effective as creative imagination. The only difference being is that you're using something that already is and improving on it. Creative imagination, when you're taking something that never was and you're bringing it into life. I like the creative imagination from a work perspective. I always work in my business of trying to do something nobody's ever done in our industry before. I compete with no one. I'm not quite sure what anybody else in our business or industry is even doing. I know a few of the people, but I know they're not doing what I'm doing because they're not me. And I'm not doing what they're doing because I'm not them. But I do like to create something that I feel is brand new. And I believe what we're doing here is something that's brand new. We have taken Napoleon Hill's 13 principles, and he said these are the 13 principles that must be used if you're going to create great wealth. But no one's ever brought it to life, so far as I know. And that's what we're doing here. There's a team of us here that want you to have this so that you can have the life that you truly and richly deserve. But you're never going to have it if you don't use your imagination. And we want you to have it, so start using your imagination right now. And I don't care whether it's synthetic or creative, just make your life better. Life can be so good. And you know something? It can get better. I like better. It's such a nice word. Doesn't matter how good things are, we can make them better with our imagination.
Ideas are intangible forces, but they have more power than the physical brains that gave birth to them. Get out your notebook. Write imagination in capitals at the top of the page. And then I'm going to use this principle in the following way. And then finish that sentence in your notebook. Don't overthink it. Just tune into your own powerful intuition and record on paper what comes to you. Do it now.